Hello, and welcome to our virtual high school financial aid night. We are here to present our normal in-person presentation that we would be presenting to various high schools throughout the Metro Milwaukee area regarding financing college, understanding the FAFSA process, working through some important conversations, and talking about what types of financial aid are available. My name is Cindy. I am a Senior Financial Aid Advisor within the UWM Financial Aid Office. I am happy to be recording this presentation so that everyone has access to it. Let's go ahead and get started. Again, our learning objectives for today are going to be applying for financial aid, looking at a couple important steps for the FAFSA process, talking about the different types of aid available, cost of college, comparing schools, and important conversations to have as students are preparing to make decisions in comparing colleges and universities that best suit their academic and financial needs. Paying for college is a combined effort in securing enough funding to cover costs. There are a number of avenues to look at when putting together a student's funding plan. If you are concerned about college affordability after receiving a financial aid offer, make an appointment with the financial aid office at the student's college or university to go over any resources or information they may have. Please do not wait until right before classes start. Allow yourself enough time to put together a plan for covering your costs each year. Reduce the stress as you prepare to begin classes. As we all know, with any education setting, especially in higher education, there are a lot of rules and regulations we have to follow. We have institutional, we have state, and we also have federal regulations that must be followed. One of the federal regulations we must follow is the Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. This states that any non-directory information may not be released to any party other than the student without the student's written consent. Other parties include parents, spouses, other family members, or someone else as part of the student support system. We have examples of what is considered non-directory information listed here. A student may complete a release form designating what information can be released and to whom it may be released. Please check in with the school's financial aid offices, registrar office, or even admissions to find out how to complete that release form. This is very important if the student wishes to have someone else assisting them through the enrollment steps. Next, we want to get into completing the FAFSA, the first step in looking at putting together a funding plan for the student. FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This application is used to apply for any federal and possibly state funding. Using the IRS data retrieval tool will make applying easier. Please note that if you use Safari or Mozilla, the FAFSA site will work for you, but you may encounter some issues. We recommend using Chrome or Firefox as your Internet Explorer. Please make sure to complete the FAFSA each year the student intends to enroll in classes. For example, for the academic year 21-22, the 21-22 FAFSA will open October 1st of 2020. It will be referencing the 2019 tax year information. There is also an app that you can download available called My Student Aid. We do have examples of some screenshots for you in a few slides. We have the link listed here. Please make sure to go to fafsa.gov, never.com or .org. .com or .org will charge about $90 to file the FAFSA for you. They are a FAFSA preparation site. Never pay to file that FAFSA. If you need assistance, please contact a financial aid office. We will certainly help you get through any questions you may not be able to answer. All right, so what do you need to get ready to file that FAFSA? You want to gather what is needed, and we have a list on the next slide. And take a deep breath. It is going to be okay. Just remember, this is not an application for admission to college. And we know that filing a FAFSA can be very frustrating and a daunting task. Take your time. Don't rush. Read each question thoroughly. Ask questions and use the resources that you have. For example, on the right-hand side of the slide, we have an example of the Help and Hints box. This is a floating box that as you click into each question will provide guidance and clarification regarding the question and the response they are looking for. Here we have listed a few things you can do to help reduce your stress while completing the FAFSA. Also refer to several handouts and items on our website that we have available to help you get through filing all the way to completion. So one of the things we advise students and families to do is to write things down. Store the username, password, and email addresses in a secure but readily accessible location. Use the resources available to you. I already mentioned the help and hints box, but feel free to call a financial aid office. Most offices will answer FAFSA questions even if your student is not intending to enroll there. And last but not least, make sure to save your progress. There is a save button on every page. Go ahead and smash that save button frequently. If you are saving your work, if you have to save and come back, or you get stuck, or something happens with your computer, your work will be saved and ready for when you come back. Here we have a list of what is needed to complete the FAFSA. First and foremost, you will need to create FSA usernames and passwords, and we'll get to that in a second. We also encourage families to have student and parent social security cards, driver's license if applicable, and any and all 2019 tax, wage, or income information. It is helpful to have bank statements or access to banking information, as well as any business and investment details, as asset information will be asked on the FAFSA. Having those at your fingertips will clear some of that frustration as you don't have to search for them right as they're asking for that question. The first step in filing a FAFSA is creating an FSA ID, or a Federal Student Aid ID. This will give you access to federal student aid websites and serve as a legal signature for both the student and the parent. Student and parent must have separate usernames and passwords and must use separate email addresses when creating that username and password. Students, we do not recommend using high school or other college or university email addresses as they do expire. Please make sure you are using a personal email address. Parents, additionally, we do not recommend using any employer or other school or any other related email addresses that could expire. Please make sure you are using your personal email address. We advise all students and families with their FSA usernames and passwords to store in a secure but accessible location. You do not have to create one every year. It is a username and password, so once and done, and they should not be shared. Keep in mind this does represent a legal signature and falls under all privacy regulations. For families with more than one student, one parent can use the same username and password for all students. Each student will create their own, but a parent only has to create one username and password to use for multiple students. As mentioned before, there is a FAFSA app, a My Student Aid mobile app. So yes, there is an app for that. Here we have a couple of screenshots indicating what things will look like as students and families are accessing the FAFSA app. Once getting into the app, you will have a selection indicating I am the parent, I am the student, or I am a preparer. What this allows families and students to do is to complete the FAFSA process without being geographically located next to one another. The student can log in indicating they are the student, log in using their FSA username and password, get through the student steps, save it, and then have the parent log in and finish out the parent section and return it back to the student for signatures. It's a great feature and a great option for families that may not be located next to one another while you are working on the FAFSA process. Go ahead and give it a download. One of the components that is built into the FAFSA to ease this filing process is called IRS Data Retrieval Tool, or DRT. This allows tax filers, if they have filed taxes for 2019, to pull in the information that the FAFSA is referencing on the tax returns automatically. In order to use the data retrieval tool, Student and parent must have a valid Social Security number and FSA ID. They must have also filed 2019 taxes already. You will be asked to enter the address exactly as it appears on the tax returns, using an example of 100 North 1st Street. You will want to pay attention to if North is indicated as just an N or if North is spelled out completely. Additionally, you will want to pay attention to if street was abbreviated as just ST or if it was fully spelled out as street. The IRS data retrieval tool is that particular. On the right-hand side of the slide, we do have situations where someone may be ineligible to use the data retrieval tool. Please keep in mind that if you are not able to use data retrieval tool or that you are ineligible, you can manually enter the data the FAFSA is asking for. As you answer each question, it will provide guidance as to what line number on your tax returns you should be referencing. Please pay close attention to which line numbers they are referencing, and also check that Help and Hints box for further clarification. As always, if you run into any issues or need help finding the correct line number on your tax forms, please contact the financial aid office. Here we have an example of the first couple of steps into the financial information section on the FAFSA. This is where that data retrieval tool process will start to happen. The first portion of the financial information of the FAFSA will be referencing parent information. And as you can see on the screen, there's a blue banner towards the upper left-hand corner, and in that banner, it will always indicate this is parent information or this is student information. In the example shown here, we are going to start with parent information. So we are going to start by the parent entering their username and password, their FSA username and password. The parent will then be asked to answer some questions regarding their 2019 tax filing status. If deemed eligible to use the data retrieval tool, they will go ahead and click at the bottom of the page, small blue button, Link to IRS. It will pop up several notifications that they are leaving the FAFSA and entering the IRS database. Go ahead and click OK. Once they get into the data retrieval tool process, they will review the information presented, confirm that all the information automatically pulled in on this screen is accurate, and then they will be asked to enter the street address, city, and zip code. Again, making sure that the information entered matches exactly what is on those tax returns. If a data retrieval tool is successfully used, you will be presented with this screen and given the option to do one of two things. The top option towards the bottom of the page is transfer my information into the FAFSA form. If you wish to use the data that was transferred, you will check the box to the right of that statement and click on the Transfer Now button. You also have the option of not using the information the FAFSA retrieved from the IRS. If you wish to not use the transferred information, you may check that second option and click Do Not Transfer. We highly recommend that you do transfer that information. In situations where a student may be selected for verification, this speeds up the process and reduces the number of papers we have to request from the student and their family. Once a successful transfer has happened, it will bring you back to the FAFSA, and you will see a confirmation here that you have successfully transferred the tax information. As you're working through the rest of the financial information section, you will see indications where it says transferred from the IRS. It will not actually show you the information that was transferred. It will not give you the numbers or the information that was transferred. For security purposes, the FAFSA has decided to mask this information, to hide this information. If you have any questions or concerns about what has been transferred, please refer back to your 1040 forms, or you may call the financial aid office, making sure there is a FERPA release form on file. Just a quick review of the different sections of the FAFSA that will be completed. Sections that are referring to student information, there are 4, and along the top of the page of the FAFSA, you will be able to monitor progress. The student will start off with demographics. They will then select schools that they would like their FAFSA to be sent to. They can select up to 10 schools at a time, and they can switch out schools as they are making decisions. They will answer roughly 13 dependency questions, and they will also provide financial information. Again, student demographics, student school selection, and dependency status are first. It will then move into parent demographics, parent financials, and student financial information as last. The sections that the parent will be answering are parent demographics and the parent information. Again, student starts off, goes into the parent section, finishes with student financials, and then signing and submitting. One of the components that the FAFSA asks for is regarding asset. They are going to ask for current balances of cash checking and savings as of the date the FAFSA was filed. It is helpful, again, to have bank information or access to bank account information while filing the FAFSA. It will also ask for net worth of investments, real estate, investment farms, and businesses. Education IRAs and college savings plans for all children in the household, not just for the students. So it is the entire value of all children living in the parent's household. So those are assets you will want to include. Assets not to include are the home that the family lives in, the primary home, family farm if that is the family's primary residence. Do not include the value of life insurance, retirement plans, retirement funds, and personal vehicles. If you have any questions on whether or not an asset should be included or help determining the value of that asset that should be included, please contact the financial aid office. We're happy to help. As we are completing the FAFSA, as you are following along the tabs at the top of the page, you will see that there is a sign and submit section, and there are 2 things that have to happen. The student needs to read the disclosure statement and agree, enter their FSA username and password to sign, and then the parent will complete the same steps. It will always be student first and then parent. Parent will need to read the disclosure statement, click agree, enter their FSA username and password, and click sign. Once those 2 steps are completed, it'll take you to the submit button, and it should give you a confirmation page if everything was submitted successfully. Congratulations, you've submitted your FAFSA. One of the things we do want to cover is we are all human. We make mistakes. It happens. But we do want families being aware of what are some common things that we do see pop up when FAFSAs are being completed. And again, everyone makes mistakes. These are all correctable. We can help you correct any errors that might have been made. A couple ones we want to highlight. Missing signatures. We want to make sure that students and parents are appropriately applying their signatures to the FAFSA so it can move forward in processing. Also being mindful of Social Security numbers. That is why we recommend having those Social Security cards handy. We've all seen it. Numbers are inverted and the wrong number gets punched in. It happens and it's okay. We can help you correct it. But to ease any tension, any frustration, we do recommend having those Social Security cards handy, verifying all Social Security numbers before hitting any sort of submit buttons. Additionally, divorced or remarried parent information. Per FAFSA regulations, if a biological parent listed on the FAFSA is in fact remarried or married to a step parent information is required. If you have any questions or concerns about that, please reach out to the financial aid office. We can help provide clarification. Last and not least, not applying for FAFSA at all. There are a lot of scholarship organizations out there that will ask for FAFSA information. So we don't want you missing out on any scholarship opportunities, and we want you to go ahead and apply at least once to see what you might qualify for. You are not required to take any financial aid that is offered to you, but we want to give you the opportunity to take a look at what you do qualify for. It might surprise you. Let us know if you run into any problems or issues. We are able to help you out and correct any mistakes you may have made. Again, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and we're happy to help. After you file the FAFSA, there is still more work to be done. And I know it's a lot. The FAFSA asks a lot of questions, but there are still some things and steps you may need to complete. Once your FAFSA is filed, the information will be sent to the schools selected on your FAFSA. You will want to monitor your email and mail for requests for more information, such as verification items, citizenship documentation, or selective service registration confirmation for males over the age of 18. Once we are able to process your financial aid offer, schools will notify students of their aid eligibility, typically via email or mail, and may require a student to accept or decline financial aid offers via a student portal. You will want to access and ask financial aid offices how their financial aid offer will be delivered. You will also want to ask how you go about accepting or declining the financial aid that you have been offered. Each school does it just a little bit differently. Once you're able to review your financial aid offer, you will want to review the types of funding offered and accept or decline as needed. Again, you are not required to take anything that is offered to you. We do advise accepting grants first, subsidized loans next, and then considering any other funding along with unsubsidized loans. After you've received your financial aid offer, to kind of help you walk through deciding what funding you want to accept and what funding you want to decline. You're going to want to create a budget. Oftentimes, final bills won't be available until closer to the start of classes, so use the tools provided by your college or university to estimate what those costs will look like. Determine whether you'll need to secure additional funding, report any scholarships to the financial aid office, complete any entrance loan counseling and direct loan master promissory notes requested, and read financial aid policies or handbooks. Policies and handbooks will help you understand the complex nature of financial aid. As always, contact a financial aid office if you have any questions or concerns about those policies or regulations. We understand that a lot can happen since the 2019 tax year, including a global pandemic, which is why we are doing a virtual presentation. If something has changed since filing 2019, please contact the financial aid office to discuss those changes. We will want to go over how that change has impacted the family's financial situation. Please note you still will be asked to complete the FAFSA with 2019 tax information, and the financial aid office will ask for documentation of those circumstances, what has changed. Please know that we want to hear from you. We want to understand what is changing, and we will go over those changes and explain how that might impact the FAFSA information and what that means for financial aid eligibility. So please reach out to us. We're happy to help you. One of the things that we want to go over is understanding the cost of college, what questions to ask as you are doing tours or visits, or maybe doing virtual tours and visits. First and foremost is understanding your fiscal responsibilities. What are the costs? What are the tuition costs? Are you going to be living on campus? What are those housing charges going to look like? Are books included in the cost of tuition through a rental program perhaps? Or are you responsible for purchasing books and supplies upfront with out-of-pocket funding? Are there any orientation fees? Are there any other fees that you need to be aware of? When are the due dates? When is your bill due? Is your tuition bill and your housing bill due on different days? And what happens if you have to drop classes or withdraw from the semester, including housing contracts. Housing contracts are a lease. Know before you sign what you are going to be held accountable for. Compare your financial aid offers. If you are looking at multiple schools, trying to figure out which is the best fit academically or financially, consider your bottom line out-of-pocket total. First, exclude the loans, then include the loans. What is your funding plan beyond federal, state, and institutional resources? Additionally, be prepared for other expenses that are not part of the bill. For example, course materials. If you are taking any art classes, do you need any additional art supplies beyond what will be provided during class? Along with transportation costs. If you are commuting to campus, what are your parking pass fees? Are you going to be taking the bus? What type of bus passes are available through the university? If you are a student that must travel a little bit further to get home for school breaks, what type of transportation costs would you have associated with that travel? And who to turn to for help. Financial aid websites, the financial aid office and financial aid staff, academic staff, orientation staff, admission staff to help you find those answers. There are also several college cost websites available. We do have a cost estimator and a cost planning link on our website as well. So a couple conversations to have as a student and support system as a family. You want to begin building a budget, setting financial goals and priorities, looking at if loans are needed, how much of the loan are you going to need? How much, what is your goal in terms of I want to graduate no more than this amount of money in debt? Discussing ways to manage expenses, thinking about your expenses now versus when you may be a college student, setting guidelines with regard to needs versus wants, identifying ways to keep spending at a minimum so that you are not borrowing more money, you are not putting money on a credit card, that you are managing your expenses fairly well. Discussing how and when bills will be paid, who is going to be paying them, setting clear expectations. For example, how much will a student be expected to contribute? Looking at those due dates, how will the student accomplish tasks on time in order to meet college or university due dates with regard to charges being due, with bills being due? And then thinking about the different types of accounts your student will have and who will manage them. Is your student going to have access to a debit card where they can pull cash out of an ATM? How the student will be managing a checking account, how students will be managing their meal plans, making sure that they are monitoring their levels, making sure they have enough food to eat, supplies, things like that. And then what other resources are available to the student and what should they be thinking about. For example, budgeting apps. There are lots of budgeting applications out there that you can download to your phone or even from your own banking institution to help you kind of keep on budget each month. Lots of great resources out there. Checking in with the financial aid office to see what we recommend. We have lots of different ideas and options for the students to access. So again, being mindful, having good conversations, and being aware of what expectations will be of the student and anyone else assisting the student while in school. So let's talk about what is the cost of going to college. By law, financial aid offices are required to publish what is called a cost of attendance, and that is the budgeted costs, an estimate of what it might take a student in terms of expenses to get through school for 9 months, so fall and spring semester. Included in the cost of attendance is tuition and fees, some sort of room and board, thinking whether the student is living on campus, off campus, or with a parent. There are always expenses associated with living, so accounting for those. Transportation costs, books and supplies, and personal miscellaneous expenses. So thinking about what type of expenses the student has now and what might change as they transition into a college environment. The cost of attendance is not what the student will be billed for. Again, this is a budget, not necessarily the actual charges they will receive a bill for. And we'll get to that in a couple of slides. Another component that we use in financial aid is the expected family contribution. And this is information that is reported on the FAFSA is used to calculate this expected family contribution. And this includes income, assets, family size, number of college, age of older parent, etc. This is not the amount you have to pay for college. This is used as an income index to determine what types of funding the student is eligible for, and how much of that funding the student is eligible for. We use the EFC in determining a student's financial need. You will hear us talk a lot about need-based funding sources, and this is how we calculate that financial need. So we take the cost of attendance minus the EFC, and that equals financial need. And that's what we are required to use for determining that. Now, financial need may change by the type of school a student is attending. We have 3 schools listed here. The first one is very similar to our campuses at UW at Waukesha and Washington County, very similar to MATC. The second school listed is UW-Milwaukee's cost of attendance. And the third school would be very similar to a 4-year private institution, for example, Marquette or Alverno. As you can see, cost of attendance varies by school. The EFC remains the same. However, the financial need does change. So the student's financial need will change based on the type of school and the school they are attending, but their EFC remains the same. So let's talk a little bit about what the student actually pays the school. Cost of attendance is broken down by direct costs and indirect costs. So direct costs are things that students will receive a physical bill for, or charges they will see applied to their account. First and foremost, tuition and fees will always be a charge that they will be billed for. If the student is living on campus in housing, they will receive charges for their room and meal plan. They will receive a bill for that. Some colleges will bill tuition and fees and room and board together on the same bill. Other colleges and universities may send the student 2 different bills, one for tuition and one for housing. You will want to find out how those items will be billed to the student. Additionally, you will need to find out if books are going to be included in the cost of tuition or if they are a separate cost that the student will have to work on covering separately from tuition. So again, direct costs are what the student is going to be receiving a bill from the school for. Indirect costs are items that students will see expenses in those categories but will not receive a bill. So things like transportation, again, commuting to campus, getting home for school breaks, things like that. If the student is not living in campus housing, any associated living expenses that they will have to consider. Books and supplies, again, if books and supplies are not included in the cost of tuition, they will consider those an indirect cost and the student will be responsible for making sure those books and supplies are purchased. We encourage students to plan ahead, set aside money each summer or from each paycheck to cover books and supplies every semester. And then miscellaneous living expenses and spending cash. Again, these are associated with things like making sure the student has laundry, covering trips to the coffee shop with friends or ordering pizza and having a movie night, things like that. So again, indirect costs are expenses that the student might have and needs to plan for, but are not going to be directly billed by the school. One of the things we do want to talk about is the difference between need versus merit aid funding sources. Need-based aid is funds that are received based on financial need. Again, going back to that calculation of cost of attendance minus that generated EFC from the FAFSA gives us that financial need. So most government grants, both from the state and federal level, are need-based. Subsidized loans, federal work study, and some scholarships may be classified as need-based scholarships. Merit-based aid are funds that are based on merit or achievement. So looking at academic scholarships, and there are a few government grants that require looking at a student's merit, academic performance. Other types of aid that you are going to be looking at are grants. Grants are qualified for based on FAFSA and financial need. So we're looking at the FAFSA information in that financial need calculation. And grants can include both federal and state grant funding sources. Pell Grant is the number one grant fund that most people hear of, and a few additional ones are listed. And the last two listed here are examples of Wisconsin state-based grants. In order to qualify for the state-based grants, you must be considered a Wisconsin resident. Additional types of aid are scholarships. We'll talk a little bit about scholarships towards the end of the presentation. And then federal work study is a need-based fund source. Federal work study is earned by the student. They will want to talk to the college or university on how they are able to obtain a work study position on campus. And these funds are typically not directly dispersed to the student's account, typically is paid to the student directly via a paycheck. More details and more clarification regarding the federal work study program at each campus, you should be asking those questions to the financial aid office to get clarification. And then loans. Keep in mind that loans must be repaid and you are borrowing against future earnings. So you do want to be mindful of your total debt as you work through college. And we'll talk about loans in a second. Subsidized loans do not accrue interest while in school. Unsubsidized loans do accrue interest while in school. S comes first in the alphabet. We do want you considering subsidized loans first and considering unsubsidized loans second. Again, you are not required to accept any of the funding that you are offered, certainly accepting grants first, and then considering loans last. With loans, we are limited to the amount of loans we are able to offer a student each academic year. These limits are set by the federal government and based on the student's dependency status. A dependent student is typically under the age of 24 and was not able to answer yes to any of the dependency questions on the FAFSA. As an incoming freshman, we are able to offer a total of financial aid direct loans of $5,500. We can split those loans out to a max of $3,500 in the subsidized loan category, and then the remaining $2,000 will be in the unsubsidized loan category. As students gain academic standing as they go from freshman to sophomore, sophomore to junior, we are able to give a little bit more each year, capping out at junior and senior year at about $7,500. Along with annual limits, we have lifetime limits. These lifetime limits are set by the federal government as well. Once a student reaches these limits, we are not able to exceed them. As a dependent student, again under the age of 24, not able to answer yes to any of the dependency questions, your loans are capped at about $31,000. This gives you about 4.5, 5 years if you are accepting your maximum loans every year. That gives you about 4.5, 5 years of study at $31,000. And then anyone over the age of 24 or is able to answer yes to any of the dependency questions, your loan limit is $57,500. There is also a limit for federal Pell Grant. They look at it in terms of 12 full-time equivalent semesters, 6 years full-time equivalent, and they track it in percentages. One full-time semester, 12 or more credits, would equal 50%. If a student is not able to attend full-time, just let us know. But that is prorated, calculated. So if they are taking 6 to 8 credits, that would be considered 25% used for that semester. Pell received in our winter term and summer terms also count towards the aggregate limits. So you do want to be mindful in budgeting the efficiency of using the Pell Grant each semester. A couple of things regarding scholarships. I cannot impress enough on applying, continuing to search well beyond your freshman year. Every year you are intending to enroll in classes, you should be searching for scholarships. A couple of great places to start that search process are college and university websites. I have UWM's example here. We have a ton of resources out there. We break down scholarships by incoming freshmen, current students, grad students. We break it down by major, different schools and colleges. We try to break this information down as easy as possible. So that is a great resource to start with, as well as your high school resources, guidance offices, libraries, etc. Oftentimes there are local scholarship foundations or organizations that are working to fundraise and promote scholarships for local students. This is a great resource within your community, and certainly your high school will be announcing important information regarding applications and deadlines and other information nights regarding these scholarships. So that's a really great resource as well. Your community libraries are also a great resource, and scholarship search engines. And this is just a few of those scholarship search engines. Search engines will ask you to create an account, giving them a brief summary of who you are, what you're thinking of going to school for, what your intended career path may look like, and any other important information that they would want to gather from you to help match you with scholarships that you qualify for. Again, this is just a small list. We have tons of resources out there that you can look at. Some are a little bit more commercialized than others. Anything we have on UWM's scholarship website has been vetted for legitimacy. We would never promote or list a resource on our website that is not something that we feel confident and comfortable that is a great resource for students. So taking a look, Googling scholarships as well, especially if you're trying to narrow it down by major. Just using the example of I'm going into nursing, I want to see what types of nursing scholarships out there. That works as well. So again, apply, apply, apply. Make sure you are researching every year that you are in school. Tips for successful scholarship search and applications: making sure you're thorough and accurate. Tell your story. This can be the most important part of the entire application process. Any type of essay or personal statement that you are asked to write, make sure you are having your teachers, your parents, your family, friends take a look at those essays to make sure that everything is correct for grammar, for spelling, checking to make sure it meets the criteria that they are asking for. Tell your story, make sure it is clean and correct in terms of spelling and grammar. And making sure it is done on time. With recommendation letters, please be sure that you are asking someone who can positively attest to your character and commitment, and making sure to give them enough time. If your application is due on October 30th and you're talking to the person you would like to have write a letter on the 27th or 28th of October, that may not be enough time. So identifying those people right off the bat and making sure that you give them enough time to write that letter. Please be kind to them. Make sure you are monitoring your deadlines, making sure that your application gets submitted on time. This is really, really important. I've heard stories of students turning in applications late and they aren't even reviewed because they were late or incomplete. So making sure you have applications in on time and they're complete. And then asking questions. Work directly with the scholarship coordinator for questions or clarity. This is really important so you understand what, if you are granted a scholarship, what will happen with those funds. Couple of quick additional funding options to consider once we've gotten through, grants and loans, scholarships, looking at different options if additional funding is needed. The first one would be the Parent Plus loan through the Direct Loan Program with Department of Education. This is for dependent students only. It is a loan taken out into the parent's name. It remains in the parent's name for the lifetime of the loan. It can never be transferred to the student. There will be a credit check done for the parent. We have the link here listed for application where parents can go. Interest does accrue on this loan, and repayment begins 60 days after the final disbursement of the loan. And typically Parent Plus loans are applied for each year. One thing to note, if the parent is denied, the student may be eligible for an additional unsubsidized loan for that particular academic year. So that is one option to consider. Private student loans are through a private lending institution of the student's choice. The student starts off as the primary borrower. Depending upon their credit history, credit score, a cosigner may be needed. Different lenders offer variable interest rates. Some may offer fixed rates. Interest rates are going to range by different type of lender. You will want to contact the school for more information and resources to help you make a decision if this is the right path for you. For both Parent Plus and private student loans, these are options, these are not requirements. Additional funding resources that may be available to students that you may want to consider and take a look at. One of the things we are seeing come back is employer reimbursement. I highly recommend checking in with the student and parents human resources areas to see if this is an option. Oftentimes they may offer a small reimbursement or maybe full reimbursement, never really know, with regard to tuition costs. Typically reimbursement works, the student needs to submit a bill and grades after the course is completed, and the employer would then reimburse the student for whatever they percentage of tuition that they would be working with them on. So again, just some options to take a look at and consider. If you need any assistance with any of these, please let us know. One great resource that every student has access to is College Goal Wisconsin. This is a free program across the state of Wisconsin to help families complete the FAFSA. Usually it is in person. There are always multiple events going on every week across the state of Wisconsin, but this year it has gone virtual. Due to the pandemic, they have decided to move this event virtually. So families can go to the College Goal website, register for a virtual event. There are multiple events throughout October and early November. If the student attends an event they can be entered in to win a scholarship from College Goal. That is super, super awesome. And we highly recommend this. What will happen with the event is you register for the event, you'll get the information to join the virtual program, and you will have a short presentation. And then from there, you'll be placed into breakout rooms where you will be able to ask financial aid volunteers questions and get assistance with filing the FAFSA. So this is highly, highly recommended as a starting point to get that FAFSA started and getting in contact with financial aid professionals across the state, helping out, volunteering, and being able to answer those FAFSA questions on a large scale. And we are done. Thank you for sticking with me. I know it's been a little bit of a long presentation. I apologize for the length of it, but we have so much to cover. Since this is not a live event, I'm not able to answer any submitted questions. But if you do have questions, our contact information is listed here: our phone, our email, and our website. Our website is packed full of resources and information available to anyone that would like to access that information. Again, I want to say thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and let us know how we can help you with your FAFSA process. Have a great one.